First up is Steve Shannon, who's the GM and SVP of Content and Services for Roku. Right next to him is Rajiv Raman. I knew I would get that wrong, but CEO of One Mainstream. Only because we were talking about his name and it's spelled wrong in the book, and then I tried to spell it right, and then I screwed it up. Next to him is Sung Bak, who's the CEO of Drama Fever. Sung, welcome. And then finally, Frank Pastero on the end, VP and Head of Business for Development and Partnerships for AOL Video. We are, bet you didn't know this, barons of broadband content. Actually, he's just a count, but the others are barons. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and where broadband content is going as we get into this. And it is a small enough group that I encourage you guys, if you have questions, raise your hand, and I will jump down from the bar with my microphone and come find you. So I encourage you guys to be as questioning as possible as we get into this. So first, though, I'm going to ask each of my panelists in 60 seconds or less to talk a little bit about what they're doing and why they should be considered a baron of broadband. And I guess you have to
Starting with me? All right.
Yeah.
How many of you have Rokus? Just curious.
If I have more than one, can I hold both hands up?
Come on, guys. They're only like $49. Yeah, I work at Roku, and Roku is the leader in selling streaming devices. So if you want to get Netflix or Amazon or any one of our 1,500 different channels on your TV, the best way to do it is to get a Roku. It's a little hockey puck-sized device. We've also announced that later this year we're coming out with TVs, partnered with the two largest Chinese manufacturers of TVs, Hisense and TCL, to start delivering Roku-enabled TVs into the marketplace. And we've announced several months ago that we sold about 8 million devices, so obviously that number has gone up quite a bit since then, almost all into the US market. And in terms of total hours streamed, we are number one among all the streaming players. So we've become popular, thank God, and also very important to many of our content partners. Most of our content partners tell us that we are their top source of traffic, their top source of revenue, and we really pride ourselves on that and partnering with them to help them build their businesses.
Yeah, that makes you a baron. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Rajiv, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to and what you're up to.
Sure. So how many of you own Rokus? You get a chance to raise your hand. There you go. I used to work at Roku.
Yeah.
So I'm Rajiv. I'm the CEO of One Mainstream. We are a digital TV distribution platform. What that means is basically we provide content companies with a full suite of infrastructure tools, software technologies that will allow them to launch OTT or video experiences on Rokus and other devices that perhaps can be as good as Roku someday, very quickly and very efficiently in a cost-effective manner. But also noteworthy is that we have customers today that range from cable and satellite companies to broadcasters to content networks like the MCNs, the emerging digital content networks. I think by way of numbers, we have about 300 broadcast 24/7 live streams, as well as about 30,000 hours of professionally produced premium on-demand content that is served through our platform today. Pretty much every major television viewing market around the world, from Australia to the US.
Cool. Sung?
Hi, from Drama Fever. We are an online video service where millions of American consumers binge watch things like Asian TV dramas, novellas from Latin America, and various TV shows and kids programs and movies that we're curating from around the world and making it available on demand with subtitles on the computer, phones, tablets, and devices like Roku. And on any given night, we probably have as many people on our service as maybe a small American cable channel, and we're reaching north of 20 million users each month through a combination of our owned and operated properties and syndicated channels. And if there's one distinction about us is we we probably top the industry in user engagement. We have two types of users. We have paying subscribers who generally watch 2 hours a day on our service, which is roughly 5 times Netflix, second only to all of TV at large, which I think is about 4 hours a day for the average American. And then we have ad-supported users who are watching north of 3 hours a month, which is right up there with Hulu among the very best. The programming mix is roughly 14,000 TV episodes and movies that we're bringing from a little over 80 major broadcasters and production companies from 15 countries throughout Asia, Latin America, and Europe. And we're growing really fast.
Cool. And Frank, anybody hear of this thing called AOL, America Online?
A little bit. So I lead business development efforts for AOL video. So if you are still a dial-up subscriber, keep it up, please. But that's not my forte, so don't ask me any questions about it. But essentially, AOL's video strategy at its core is a syndication platform. We have a massive syndication platform of premium video that is curated and programmed across our owned and operated sites, as well as a third-party network that we've established with partner sites. We're also powering content for some apps such as Roku. We are powering the news channel for Roku and other places. But our video efforts essentially include content acquisition of a library of about 1.5 million video assets right now, made up of folks from Discovery to ESPN, as well as syndication distribution, original content, which we've, for the past 2 years, has been very successful for us, tech, such as advertising, innovative ads, et cetera, and pretty much anything else that the real baron of the video, which is Tim Armstrong and Ron Harnaveau, send my way, which is what we consider, quote-unquote, strategic.
They're sort of more dukes of video, right?
Kind of,
I know
yeah.
Ron, he's
Yeah.
more of a duke.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So let's start talking about broadband programming and what that means. I want to start off with that. And actually, Frank, I want to start off with you because you guys do, it seems like the entire, you do everything. And are there different types of broadband programming when you look at it? That I know there's sort of the web original short form, there's longer stuff that feels like TV. You guys do things with iJustine, you do things with famous models. What is broadband programming, and can you put your finger on it and say it's exactly this, or is it just so broad and vast it's hard to describe?
It's a combination of both, right? So for us, programming is based on data, right? So we have the luxury of having a really diverse library. We have 15 verticals of content that we have to program for. So really, it's understanding the audience and what is the audience looking for, right? So it's great to have great content, but if nobody wants to see it, doesn't matter anyway, right? So if you're not programming for a dedicated audience, that means understanding who's visiting your site, why they're visiting your site, and what's the intent behind it, right? Without understanding that, you can't really program effectively.
So Song, when you think about broadband content, for you guys, and by the way, Drama Fever is a great name, isn't it? When you think about are you mostly repurposing existing shows that have been on traditional television and bringing them to this market, or are you creating new stuff that sort of feels like a new medium?
It's a little bit of both. The core, we built the business. We got started by essentially rebroadcasting premium TV shows that are previously distributed, under monetized. But now we're trying to co-produce TV shows that really kind of bring the crowds into our site, and they get to watch all these other stuff that we have. So when I think about programming, what we're really doing is building out next generation television channels, right? Mirroring kind of what the cable channels went through back in the 80s. So Drama Fever is our first property. It really caters to people who are fanatical about international scripted serialized content. But in a few months, we're launching something similar for documentaries. There's something going live in early 2015 for horror. So I'm in the process of building out a series of channels that will aspire to become category killers for specific verticals, where you bring together audiences with shared passions around genres and interests or personalities.
So let's talk about horror for a minute. Your horror channel, right? Is this going to be existing horror programs that are the half-hour, hour-long, 2-hour movies, or is it going to be, Scary Snowman? Anybody seen Scary Snowman on YouTube? If you haven't seen Scary Snowman, you should. It's horror. It's wild. But he scares people. I mean, what do you think of when you build something? Is it something new or something old?
So, we're focusing specifically on premium content. And premium content, what I mean by that is made for TV production, that level of quality in terms of whether it's TV shows or movies, right? So the horror vertical is going to be, actual movies, theatrical grade movies that we package together with a layer of unique programming that.
So would Paranormal Activity fit in that? I mean, that.
Yeah, I mean, within horror, there's a whole bunch of subgenres within that, right? So if you're into horror, whether you like kind of, creepy stuff to like ghosts or monsters, we'll have it all.
Cool. So Rajiv, when your customers and who are out there pulling all this stuff together, what do you see is the formats that are really working? Is it a lot of traditional? You work with a lot of big folks. Is it a lot of traditional? Is it new? How do you see that mix developing out?
I think the thing that has struck me the most, having spent so much time on streaming essentially being equated to on demand. I mean, I think that's a construct that somehow has got joined over the years thanks to Netflix and YouTube. We somehow think of the two always together. I think what's interesting to me through our experiences with our customers, cable and satellite companies, is how much power live streaming still holds. And I think what we've seen with regard to where live and digital meet today is and actually in the past even 3 to 4 years, is completely not it. I think what we're about to see over the next 5 years, we're starting to see some of the sports stuff come out, right? Which is always this sort of held as this holy grail here in the US at least, but outside the US it's already happening. There's a service in the UK that runs on our platform that has the number 1 through 4, 24/7 sports channels that has football, soccer, rugby, and cricket and tennis. And you can buy it without a cable satellite subscription on a 24-hour access basis, exact same thing as you would get if you had a satellite cable subscription.
When you talk about a live stream, not every piece of video in there is actually being live at the time. I mean, it's not like you're 24 hours of live soccer, but it's a stream that's always there of something new that's being played where you're dipping into the stream whenever you get into it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always been true with live. I mean, you'd go bankrupt. Make sure that you'd go bankrupt if you tried to produce 24 full hours of new stuff every day. So, I mean, there's only some portion of it that's new and original. But, you know, the thing with sports in particular is that, you know, the draw is the match. The draw is your team. The draw is this affinity factor that you have to the sport or to the team or to maybe it's a dramatic moment. Maybe it's something that's never happened in the history of Super Bowl or whatever it is. And so that's, you know, that's unscripted, right? To speak in Sung's terms, that's stuff that's going to bring people together, you know, as it happens, and it's amazing to see the first wave of that come out on digital and streaming devices, and see on a side-by-side basis, you got 1 hour of consumption patterns with on-demand content, be it, you know, like the MCN style of shorter form but well-produced content. Together with, say, the movie studio type content from a Netflix or a Hulu, and then you compare that with the viewing patterns that you see with, say, live, it's dramatic. It really is dramatic.
So, Stephen, you guys, you know, you pretty much do it all. You enable this. You've got people that do short form, that do long form. When we launched on the Roku platform, we were like the 4th or 5th channel with Revision 3, and it was Netflix, it was Pandora, and I think it was us. And we were mostly short form. We had some long form. But as you watch user consumption change, as people have their big screen TV, how do you see it? Is it a shorter form? Is it traditional television? Is it live? Is it all those things? Is any one becoming dominant?
We're primarily long form, I would say, in the balance of internet video. You know, the trend is that shorter form video is consumed more heavily on the mobile platforms, and longer form videos consumed more heavily on the connected platforms. In a way, if you get somebody to click on a video, you know, on a Roku, it's almost a missed opportunity if that video is just 3 minutes and you're done. Because usually when people sit on the couch and click to play something on Roku, they're willing to be there for an hour or two. And so, so they're usually looking for that type of content. And our view is that, you know, all video will be streamed eventually. So we think of all video as potentially broadband video. And I think that a lot of the short form, the emergence of short form on the internet was largely driven by the fact that it was really only mobile platforms that were connected, and TVs hadn't been connected until very recently. It was, you know, tablets and PCs and cell phones were connected way before TVs were, strangely enough. So really only short form content was viable. But now, as more and more TVs are becoming connected, and that's become a big market, all of the long form will become available.
Yeah, I don't buy that it wasn't viable. I mean, we were doing hour-long Dig Nations in 2007, and people watching it, loving it. But I do get your point. It is certainly something, as you put on the TV, people expect longer experiences. So, a question for everybody. Y'all feel free to chime in. I really want to explore, is this a new medium? Is broadband video a new medium? Or is it just an old medium packaged and delivered in new ways?
I think it's an old medium packaged and delivered in new ways, right? I think some of the things that we've tried to do, and I think what you're seeing with the emergence of the MCNs and how powerful they're becoming with makers and full screen and others that are out there, what you're seeing is kind of almost a revolution, right? And it's not about platform delivery, right? Video's video, right? And that's essentially what I think you're starting to see. You're starting to see this on the creative side, on the technology side, and even on the buy side. And once it truly permeates the buy side, it won't matter what platform these things are on. Is it on the TV? Is it on your phone? Is it on your tablet? Wherever it is, video's video.
It's just TV.
It's just video. It's just content, right? Compelling content is going to be viewed however people can get it.
I agree with Frank. I mean, the internet essentially allows you to do hyper level targeting of people who are interested in certain types of content. So for instance, I wouldn't exist as a company a few years ago, right? I mean, the fact that I exist today is because I could go directly to consumers with a programming mix for people who just care about some narrow niche of content, right? And the reality is, as there's more screens out there, the world is also getting inundated with content. It just allows for people to kind of have more of a fragmentation on the things that they like, right? And internet just allows you to really hone in on that and be able to build a network or a channel in a very cost-effective way.
I mean, I think all video is IP at some point. I don't think this is a question of, will some stuff still remain over here and over there. I think the issues that are standing in the way, in part, are technical. But I think if you set the technical pieces aside for a minute, I think what's clearly evident to me is that anytime this technology changes, this delivery technology changes, whether it be this television business that we're talking about today or the phone business as we've seen from a few years back, it opens up opportunities for people to come in that couldn't otherwise have come in, to Sung's point from a few minutes ago, or to the MCNs that frankly are catering to the millennials who frankly weren't really catered to by the traditional programmer. So now you've got this thing going on that it's more of a democratization. It's someone can come in and do stuff that you couldn't do before. You needed that $100,000 a minute of investment in per minute of content type bar to get into the TV business. Now that's changed, but that's a technology that's enabling that change. But I don't doubt for a minute, whether it's live or on demand, that it's all going to be IP delivered.
Well, look, I think it's a really interesting point, because there is sort of the traditional television media, which is 30 minutes or an hour, a movie which is 90 minutes or 2 hours. And what, to your point, you've been able to create with the ability to give a camera to anybody and to give that personal experience. And in many ways, layering the social two-way interface, to me, feels like there's something new and different there, but perhaps I'm wrong. Anybody?
I think it's also, you have the technology that wasn't available to a lot of folks, right? Now you have a screen in your living room for digital guys who can create content and compete for the same eyeballs that they've always been trying to get to, right? You're in the same room with these folks on the same device, you're consuming linear content. The opportunity is there. So I think as the technology and the platforms build out and as it becomes easier for people to actually discover content within those worlds, the switch is on the verge of happening. Yeah. It's just a matter of what is it going to take to finally let people make that leap. And I don't consider anybody in this room kind of a litmus test. I consider like my mother, who, if she gets to the smart TV screen, she thinks she's going to launch like a nuclear missile somewhere, right? So, because she freaks out. She's like, what is this? My TV's broken. We need to get to a point where everybody can find things easily and consume via whatever screen it's on. Right?
Yeah, Steve, you guys, one of the beautiful things about the Roku was that you had this remote that had 3 buttons or something like that. It was great. Now it's probably got 5 buttons. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But how do you think? Wow, 5 buttons. That's a lot. How do you see this move to broadband TV, or if it's all IP delivered or whatever? How is this affecting traditional TV? I mean, when the people who are making traditional TV, do they look at you and go like, you're changing my business, I hate you, or I got to get in bed with you because you're changing my business, or do they ignore you?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. I mean, probably the most notable phenomena right now is in that regard is the TV Everywhere initiative that the cable operators, the satellite operators are doing. And this is the idea where you can access things like ESPN or HBO or Fox or whatever on a device like an iPad or a Roku, by getting a username and password and authenticating. And it's just, you know, I spend a lot of time talking to cable operators and satellite operators, and every company I walk into has a different take on it. I mean, it's all just up in the air right now. It's a total free-for-all. But, you know, we're big fans of the initiative. It's incredibly popular. I mean, apps like HBO Go or Watch ESPN are phenomenal, and it shows that, you know, it's not just about the content, but it's about the experience. It's about, you know, the user interface that you're going into, and when you get into something like an HBO Go, I mean, every show that they've ever made is in there virtually, and you know, they just can't get that experience anywhere else. So it really elevates even the traditional pay TV subscription package in that sense, even though it's over the top.
Good.
I do want to, yeah, thank you. I do want to go back to what you just asked before this, as well as this point, which I said, well, this interactivity is possible. Is that going to completely change together with, you know, are these guys going to hate us, the digital guys, or are they going to like us, right?
Right.
So, you know, one of the things that is quite readily apparent is that in the old way of delivering,
Wow. Look at that moth.
Oh yeah.
He was. That's a baron of broadband right there. Like,
you know,
me.
whether you were watching a sports channel, a music channel, a cooking channel, you know, there's absolutely no difference in the experience at all. And if you think back to what technology enables you to do today, and you think back to what you would want as a consumer, if you're watching a sports channel, there's a level of interactivity with the stats, with the team, with the scores, that so much more is possible with digital that is just not possible with today's model. If you think about a cooking channel, you know, you may want to go back to, I want to see that part again, can't do it. You want to, you know, bring the recipe up side by side, can't do it. You know, want to save just that little recipe so you can come back to it later, can't do it, right? So now digital lets you do those things, right? So I think that when you start taking a genre-specific view as opposed to sort of a broad-based view of will all, you know, content be bettered by digital, or is it the same, or is it a net neutral outcome? I think you can't do, I think you have to go in on a genre by genre basis, say sports versus comedy versus news versus drama versus scripted.
Yeah, or channel by channel basis, those, you know, the idea of going into one EPG where there's 300 channels versus 300 different apps that are each tailored to the content and to the audience. You know, it's just wildly different experience. And rather than being, you know, on one software company's roadmap where, you know, once a year they come out with a new EPG, instead you've got, you know, potentially 50 companies, 100 companies iterating every month on their apps and adding things like, you know, Fox might have voting in their award shows, and Nickelodeon might have games, and ESPN might have sports stats, and, you know, it could be different for everybody, but that's where it's going, and that'll change that'll change the experience dramatically.
Frank and Sung, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this. On the content creation side, you know, you guys are both actively looking for and finding people creating content. Do the people who are most successful in creating new broadband content, and Sung, I'm going to start with you, and then Frank, are they sort of traditional television makers? Are there people who may have grown up creating stuff on YouTube? Or are they something else altogether?
Well, you know, Frank's case might be different. In my case, it's still made for TV content, right?
Yep. So it's still the guys who grew up cutting their teeth making shows for television.
It is, but
by the way, it's maybe somewhat different in Korea than it is here,
but what's
right?
happening is, like, now that you know, there's a global audience for a lot of these shows. When people are producing content, they have that in mind, right?
Yep.
So the way they kind of cast the stories, the way they kind of put it together, they deliberately make it for a global audience. It's essentially what the Hollywood guys have been doing for like 80 years. It's just getting more democratized worldwide.
Right.
For us, it's a mix, right? So it's traditional, right? A lot of the content we do sometimes is celebrity passion projects. You know, those things work.
Do they work?
Right? They work.
Those celebrity passion projects?
They actually work. So I mean,
keep on thinking about that Tom Hanks animated thing that was on Yahoo that nobody ever heard of after they talked about it.
we're talking unscripted, and just that's what our forte is. We won't discuss scripted just yet.
Okay, so you're talking unscripted now.
Unscripted. So we've done, you know, last year we announced it was our first real foray into kind of the new fronts, right? We had a significant investment into original content creation. Since that time has passed, we've gotten over 160 million views of that content that's been distributed. associated, right? One of the shows, Candidly Nicole, was so popular that...
That's Nicole Richie,
That's
right?
Nicole Richie,
Yeah.
correct. Was so popular that it actually rivaled the amount of viewership that we're seeing on cable networks, right? So, those are the kind that's the kind of content that's being created and it's being consumed, and there's a hunger from the advertising community. And to be quite honest with you, the advertising community, or on the linear side, you should be more concerned with image, is this the right show that I can be associated with? Whereas on the digital side, they understand they're going to take some risks. It's not the same, it's not the same, buy here. So, we're able to take some risks, but again, we see everything from, YouTube stars to the traditional guys that are getting into the digital game.
So are there questions out here? Anybody want to ask anything? See, I could run out as well. Okay, this is your show. You want questions, you got to ask them. Raise your hand. There's one over there. John, actually, I don't know who that is. For a minute, I thought I did.
You're not going to jump down?
I'm not going to. He's got a microphone. I don't have to jump down.
The combination of Comcast and Time Warner as a negotiating force, good for innovation in this area or bad?
Well, it's a really good question about the consolidation going on with Time Warner and Comcast with Direct TV and AT&T. We're seeing a lot of different movement out there. Are these just dinosaurs mating, or is there something really happening?
I think MSO business is under attack, right? There's cord cutting happening every single day. You're starting to see what's really going to truly change things is when the buy side starts looking at digital, comparing apples to apples, right? And that's
you seeing that happen out there?
We
yet?
are, because
with advertisers where they're starting to say,
absolutely.
Hey, because you guys early on adopted the GRP. I remember Ron and I had a debate about that. And is that working?
It is working. It is working, right? So we've done a couple of things where we've integrated our content into the folks like MediaOcean, TV buyers that are actually now have access to our content associated in gross rating point. With that, now you're comparing apples to apples. You're comparing video across landscapes, right? I think what a lot of folks are realizing is, hey, I don't need the MSO to get my content. I can go to HBO Go, I can go to Roku, I can go to other places, Hulu, all these different places to consume the same content that's being made available on these MSOs that I'm paying money for. I don't need to do it.
Raji, if you work with these guys, what's your point of view on this? You don't have to say it if you don't want to. You don't have to piss off your customers, but
No, I'll try and say it the right way. So I think the first thing is that I think it's not quite right to take two data points and draw a straight line. I think the reason Time Warner and Comcast are together perhaps has nothing to do with why AT&T and DirecTV are together. And I think the minute Time Warner Cable was spun out of Time Warner, there's a whole set of issues that came with that, which essentially left them with little choice but to do what they did. AT&T DirecTV is an entirely different reason. It's any satellite player anywhere in the world today has this issue where they don't have a broadband play into the consumer's house, and that's got to be a very scary place to be if you are a satellite-only company. And if you are a broadband-only player and you have no video rights, like the good stuff, then that's got to be a really scary place for you to be too. So I think it's not dinosaurs mating. I think it's opportunity at a scale that makes it appear like dinosaurs are mating. But I think that's why those two have come together, and I suspect we'll see more of that. I think we're seeing about 3 decades worth of change in this cable video business play out in front of our eyes over the last 3 to 6 months. I mean, it's really dramatic seeing, what AT&T is doing with the Time Warner thing, with what Netflix. I mean, Netflix, 40-some million subscribers. That's phenomenal. I mean, when you start seeing all these data points come out, you got to wonder, is there a...
And the TV Everywhere stuff, and the HBO Go stuff, and HBO going to Amazon, and all that stuff, and Roku as well. So what's your take on all these mergers and...
do they squash innovation? I don't think they have to if the deals are done right. Necessarily. I think Comcast wants to be a national company, right? They're a regional company right now, and they don't have big presence in places like New York and LA. Those are important markets, and so it's natural that they want to be there. And then as Rashid pointed out, with DirecTV has wires in the ground now, so great for them.
Yep. So. Questions, other questions? We'll get back to it as well, so think about it. I want to talk a little bit about formats, to a topic that you brought up, Frank. You said, we're talking about unscripted. Let's talk about scripted. So, Sung, a lot of what you guys do, I'm assuming, is scripted, right? I mean, the documentary stuff won't be, but a lot of it is.
Yeah,
is it working?
I mean, it's working out well for us. I mean, the way we're approaching this is I'm looking at share of time spent based on categories of entertainment. So as our first vertical, we picked serialized scripted content because frankly, it's the number one sort of outside of sports and news on how people spend time. So it worked out well. We are going to get into scripted as well as non-scripted additional categories, right? But what the program mix that works well on the web is not, I mean, it's not that dissimilar from it works anywhere, right? Because ultimately, good content always wins out. So look, whether it's on YouTube or premium services like ours, there's always, it's a hit-driven business, right? So you're going to always find a handful of shows at any given point in time that drive a disproportionate share of all your views, right? So the internet just allows you to offer that in a more sort of creative, innovative way. So, you know, it allows you to create more effective bundles, whether it's serialized content or
Yeah. Frank, what are you
scripted.
seeing from a format perspective? What's working, what's not?
You know, we tried scripted a few years ago. It was a tremendous success, which is why we're doing unscripted now. You know, it's based on a number of factors, right? We created content based on what our audience was clamoring for, right? We didn't want to get into make a significant investment in content creation and just shoot in the dark. It was based on, hey, what are we seeing and what are the trends that we're seeing from our audience? So we created content based on that, right? We don't want to get into the, you know, the Honey Boo Boo side, and if anybody's offended, didn't mean to offend you.
Honey
just
Boo Boo
saying.
is not scripted.
But no, correct. But it's more of the.
It's reality
the-
television.
So, you know, it's not scripted, but it's set up, right? We wanted to kind of get into.
Set up.
Well, hey, let's the whole family go out and get on, you know, tractors kind of thing. It's planned like that. Whereas what we're trying to create is more of a I don't know,
No, I know
a
what you're
higher
saying.
scale, you know, a different version of unscripted, right?
Look, I think there are things that happen on traditional television, whether it's on some of the networks that we have at Discovery or others, that simply don't work in a shorter form and a more broadband-oriented way. But they do work in those, and who knows, they may end up working that way tomorrow.
Absolutely.
know.
I don't think, look, you can't be married to a single format because viewing patterns change and viewer choices change. So
I used to say, like, scripted. No, we'll never do scripted on the
Right.
internet. And then I met Dane Bowe from Annoying Orange. And I'm like, that was the stupidest thing I ever said, because you're making millions of dollars with Annoying Orange.
yeah, and that's why we
it's
say never
scripted.
say never,
Right,
So 'cause
exactly.
we don't know what will happen in a year from now, maybe two.
So when you think about different formats and the way that, let's think about the way that viewing is changing. And, you know, Rajiv, I think binge viewing is really interesting because it's something that I think a lot of people in television missed, and a lot of people on the web missed, and all of a sudden it's, I mean, my wife, I haven't seen her for 2 days. Orange is the New Black is her new life. What are you seeing when you look at the user data on that? And then, you know, Frank, Steve, I'm interested in your take too.
Yeah. First is, you know, on this scripted versus unscripted, I think the one element that I wanted to add to that point was that there's an element of cost here which has driven the growth of these different formats, right? Unscripted really came about because the economics around scripted were so tough that here's this new thing that seemed to resonate with people with American Idol back 8-10 years ago that was really inexpensive to create, and it took off like crazy, and we saw all this stuff. And now you've taken the cost value down dramatically with the web-based stuff, PewDiePie and things like that. They do really well. So I think there's an element of cost in that whole conversation.
I
or
think
economics.
production values,
Production.
though, are still at the same,
You keep
at
the
least for
production-
us.
exactly,
They're
you keep
still
the
high,
value.
Production
right?
values,
So-
I mean, all the stuff that we do, all vlog-based, video, whatever you want to call it, we still have high production.
Right. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
so
you're
you
still,
still-
at the end of the day, you're still competing on that
we
same
gotta go
level.
HD, the
Yeah,
does sound good.
but the cost at which you're doing it is nothing compared to like the cost.
I'm not in the thousands of dollars a minute.
Exactly.
I can tell you that.
So that there's that I think is driving what's succeeding and not. But to your question about binge, and I want to go back to something that Steve said, which was asking, you know, like the 3-minute stuff, you know, is that really appropriate for a television viewing? And I think the binge is almost the perfect counterexample to that, because what that's really saying to me is that even a 40-minute show, okay, fine, strip the ads out, whatever, 32 minutes, whatever number you got there, even that's not long enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are people who are watching 5, 4, 3, I do it, right? 2, 3, 4 of these episodes back to back, right? So when you say, well, what's the right duration, whether it's this or that, to me what binge really points to is the fact that the user is in control of their viewing experience, and when they are, even 30, 40 minutes isn't long enough. They want an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours to go at it.
Well, and look at something like Twitch, right? When you're watching video games, you can stream those video games. You watch people play video games for hours.
Yeah.
I mean, not me, but people do.
Yeah, I'm down in LA, and it's really phenomenal and exciting to see what all of this new distribution is doing to the production community. I mean, you know, LA is not what it is up here in terms of innovation and technology. There's some of it, but it's minor compared to what goes on up here. But in the production community, it's just absolutely on fire. I mean, there's so much new types of production, and it ranges all the way down to the YouTube channel, MCN type stuff, which is really in a froth right now. But I think even in long form, because of binge viewing and that sort of thing, you're going to see a lot of transformation. I mean, I think you're going to see television as an art form rise above film, really, as the premier art form. It's sort of like what short stories are to books, right? The TV is going to become the books. And if you think about a book, are the chapters all the same length? No. Do TV episodes all have to be the same length? No. Do they have to have cliffhangers at the end of them to get you to watch the next one? Do they have to have pacing where you can put ads in them? No. So all of that stuff goes away, and we still basically produce in that paradigm, but it's all gonna start to dribble away, and the whole medium is gonna adjust.
Well, talking about medium adjusting, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how the social layer has changed content creation, content viewing, the way stuff develops. And bring this up because you see, we've certainly seen this with the content that we create for YouTube and other places. Some of the folks who really get it will create the show, and then they'll put it up on YouTube, and they'll spend the next 8 hours interacting with their audience and talking to them about it. And that sort of two-way conversation, and I often talked about the way we create content is very iterative, where it used to be that you'd create something and do 13 episodes and throw it out there, and hopefully people like it. Now we put it out there, we actually refine it with the audience. Is that changing, or is it only changing a little bit? And Steve, let's start with you. And what are you guys seeing there on the social side? I mean, you guys added in Twitter and some other things. Is anything really? Are you seeing any differences there, or is it just basically view?
Well, the interactivity still happens on the second screen.
Okay.
There's not a whole ton of interactivity going on in the experience. I think on the first screen, I think part of it is just because the features haven't been added, and there's a lot of experimentation and trying to find. I mean, these apps are new. Revision 3 is a.
Well, we don't have
pioneer,
interactivity on your platform either, which I wish we did.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's just not really that common. So, but the second screen stuff is absolutely popular and getting more and more popular. I forget what the percentage is, but it's something like 40% of people are sitting there with either a tablet or a smartphone or a computer while they're watching, and some subset of those are actually interacting on the show. So it's definitely growing, but I would say it's not a sea change yet.
Frank, how are you seeing the interaction of social changing what's created, how it's created, how it's consumed?
It's been a big part of what we do. So, especially when it comes in the creation process, choosing talent, right, depends on, what kind of social media power do they have behind it. Mm-hmm. So you take something like we did a deal with James Franco, obviously that's driven by a number of factors because he is James Franco, but also there's a strong social media backing behind that comes along with it. Candidly, Nicole, the success behind it, we can clearly draw the line that was driven by her massive Twitter following and her putting out, hey, new episode of Candidly Nicole, and then all of a sudden millions of users would go and watch that content. But it's a very big part of what we do, and quite frankly, it's become a very effective means of marketing and PR for us. And we're going to continue to look at that as we move forward with other talent as well.
So what are you seeing as you bring some of these pre-existing programs over? Can you still build a big social base around things that were produced maybe a couple years ago?
Sure. I mean, our whole marketing is based on social media. So, our content is still primarily lean back TV type of content, right? But in most cases, I'm dealing with materials that most people have never really heard about. So our core marketing is how do we kind of stimulate demand for these shows that are foreign and different, right? So the way we go about doing that is we create content, we create articles, and we feed that through Facebook, Twitter, and all these other places to draw people in.
Rajiv?
This is the one issue that I have is we've attached this word social to say, well, what does social and TV mean? And I think the reality is we don't actually mean what is social and TV. I mean, I think it's come to mean one of two things, neither of which, in my mind, are actually the word social. One is marketing, is how do you acquire users, right? And we say, well, we use social, but you're not, I mean, the fact is you're going to, previously we had different ways to go out and seek audiences. This happens to be the way we seek audiences, but the viewing experience itself isn't changed because of that, right? You see what I mean? It's just a user acquisition mechanism. And the other way that it's meant is that, I see based on what my friends watched or something to that effect, that actually is personal. That's not social, right? So that's the other aspect of it that typically comes up when you think about what's social in TV. And so I think in either scenario, I don't think we've quite seen where does the true social and TV come together. I'm still waiting for that.
I don't know. I see a third aspect of it as well, which is kind of where I was going, which is where the audience now can have a direct relationship with the creator, or at least they think they have a direct relationship with the creator. The ones who do it really well actually feel like it's not like I'm sitting here and the creator's up there and I'll never be able to touch them. It's more like they're my friends sitting right there, and I'm able to have what feels like, if it works really well, almost a one-on-one connection. Any of you guys seeing that kind of changing the relationship between the creator and the host and the audience? Is that happening, or is that just sort of a blip and it's going to go away?
But I mean, why would you say that American Idol and their fan thing isn't an example of that?
Because you can never sit down and get in front of, I don't know, who was a host of American Idol? I never watched it, it's so boring. But you could never actually have a relationship with one of those people. You could actually talk and have a relationship with Phil DeFranco or Kevin Rose or these folks. I mean, that direct connection is amazing. Go to VidCon in 2 weeks and look at the people who have a direct connection with the audience and the emotion they feel.
Yeah, I think one interesting example in the living room world is what Glenn Beck has done with the Blaze,
Right.
Where having a relationship is in part just actually having distribution and
That's
getting
a
in front of people, and of course the vast majority of channels on Roku never had TV distribution before, so there's a lot of new relationships there, and Glenn Beck, he's stepped out of the corporate, behemoth where, he didn't have 100% creative freedom there, and he's now has a direct channel where he produces and delivers directly and gets paid directly by subscribers. I think it's $6 a month or something like that. He's making millions, and he has it's one of our top 20 channels, and he gets to do whatever he wants in there.
Yeah, he's changed that relationship, I think, with his fans to a certain extent.
I also think it's social, yes, absolutely is a marketing and PR and customer acquisition play. It absolutely is, but it's also doing things that were barred from the ecosystem before. Take Huffington Post Live, right? The news that's reported on within HuffPost Live is based on what's trending on social platforms, right? What are people actually talking about? Word of mouth now is happening a lot faster than it has previously, right? It's a show gets hit, people start talking about it at the water cooler. It's now for us anyway, and for what I'm seeing, it's a massive water cooler that can hit audiences instantaneously. And if you're not taking advantage of that, what you're doing is you're leaving a massive audience reach and audience development tool that is available to every single content creator on the planet.
All right, so we've got about just a couple minutes left. I already asked you guys for questions. If anybody has any, ask them. But I'm going to do a couple lightning rounds here. Real quickly, I'll just go down it. 5 years from now, what's the most important platform for people to watch broadband content? Web, cell phone, tablet, TV, all of them, PlayStation TV. I had told you I'd bring that in. Something new. I'm going to go with you last, because
That's obvious.
You can predict his answer, aren't you? Yeah.
Frank, I'll start with you.
I think it depends on format, right? You're already seeing the trends. Short form is doing really well on mobile. Desktop is, in some cases flattening out. But I think it's going to depend on format, to be quite honest with you. I think viewing patterns will be a bit more defined within the next 5 years. Basically, certain platforms will attract certain viewers, and certain content's going to attract certain viewers.
Sung, what do you think?
So the way we're planning for the future, we're assuming desktop's going to flatten out, right? And we're really optimizing the business for phones, tablets, and connected TV devices, including Roku.
Cool, Rajiv?
Yeah, I think screen size matters, definitely. So bigger screens are going to play a big role, but I think phones are going to play a role, but somewhat different from how we think about it. Their sheer numbers makes them a massive force.
Steve, are you working on a phone?
We're not working on a
Roku
phone.
branded phone?
We're not working on a
You
phone.
heard it here first. No.
I think it's revenge of the TV. The TVs hadn't been connected, and that really had been the reason why people say, hey, it's all moving. It's all moving to the tablet. It's moving to the computer, and that was bullshit. Really, it was just because the TVs weren't connected yet. And what you'll see is the vast majority of viewing being on the TV. It already is, and it will just continue to be more so.
All right, real quick, what do you think? Is it going to live or die? And Steve, I'm going to start with you this time because I notice it's on your platform, except I can't use it because I can't fool my IP address. Aereo.
Area.
Area, win or lose?
God, I have no idea. I am just totally on the fence. Sorry to wimp
That's
out
all right. No,
on
that's
that, but
okay. You're allowed to
I
wimp
just
out.
don't know what the heck's going to happen.
Rajiv, win or lose, area?
Win or lose Aereo.
Are they going to win their case? Are they going to be out
Oh,
there?
no,
They're
no, I
gonna
wasn't
lose, they're
restating the
gonna-
question. I was going to say that win or lose, something like an Aereo will exist on a streaming device.
Cool. Sung.
I agree with Rajiv. I think Aereo is probably you're probably not gonna hear about it too much in a few years. Just my gut sense. I think they'll go down in history as part of a big legal case, but the service itself might not be around.
So they're not a baron. No.
I-
Frank?
I think the service was extremely important in the disruption of viewing habits, but I think who's going to win is dependent on who's got the deeper pockets for legal fees.
Yeah. I really like the service. I think it's great. I think it did a good job on the interface. I think it's really nice. All right, traditional TV, $70 billion at risk. Is it being disrupted? Is it going to go away? We're going to see the same sort of value destruction that we saw in music. And Rajiv, I want to start with you.
I think there is definitely two things that are going to happen at once. There is going to be the erosion of that price for sure relative to where it sits today, but by the same token, I think it's going to open up new customer base and a new subscriber base for the traditional pay TV providers, because they'll be able to go out of market much more efficiently with an IP-based system. So on the whole, I think it should be a growing, not a shrinking of that $70 billion.
Sung?
Yeah, I think on the whole, the pay TV market is probably gonna, at the very least, maintain the revenue, if not grow it. And I think that the composition of that will be different, right? I think that the current model of paying a certain amount for a mixture of triple play, that may just kind of evolve, but it would be a very slow evolution.
Steve?
Yeah, I think it's going to, long term, it's going to grow. In the interim period, there might be a dip. But long term, I think it's, so much commoditization of distribution is going to cause people to watch more TV, and, the ad models and the transactional models and all that will just grow.
Frank?
I think the platform of consumption will vary, but to be quite honest with you, until the buy side on the linear side catches up with what's happening in digital, it's going to remain the largest segment, because that's where the ad dollars are. You have to compare apples to apples in order for that true disruption to happen.
Cool. Well, our time is up at the bar here. We are done. Thank you guys for being a great audience. Thank you guys, Frank, Sung, Rajiv, and Steve. And thanks for being part of TV Tomorrow. I think we're just going to go off that way. Fall off the stage.